Hello friends, for today's video I wanted to go through a list of some projected fantasy releases for the month of February. Before jumping into it, a big thank you to Book of the Month for working with me on today's video. Book of the Month is an online book subscription service where you have 5 to 7 books to choose from every single month for an affordable price. They're always brand new, they're always hardcover, and they really emphasize both emerging authors and the authors that a lot of us are aware of. And because of the fact that their service is so curated and they have a staff and team of people that are reading through so many different books constantly, they're able to sift through a lot of it and bring to you the books that are going to be talked about within each genre. Another great thing is Book of the Month has since started an audiobook service as well. So each month you can put your credit either toward one of their hardbacks or you can pick up an audiobook. And you also have access to a catalog of audiobooks and a catalog of some of their hardbacks from previous months as well. For the month of January, I got the thriller First Lie Wins. Who is Evie Porter? Definitely not who she says she is, but her past is catching up with her, which spells trouble. I also got the sequel to Divine Rivals, which is called Ruthless Vows, as an add-on. This is one of my most anticipated releases. I cannot wait to jump into this, and I was so excited that they had this. They actually had Divine Rivals also earlier, and now they have the sequel, which just makes me so excited. If you'd like to check Book of the Month out, you can get your first book for $5 with the code RESET. A big thank you again to Book of the Month, and now on to today's video. There are quite a few, so I'm just going to jump right into it, and starting with the 6th, we have the book Bride. So there's a lot of books on the list today that are ones that I'm definitely really interested in, and there are a few that I am very sure a lot of you are going to be interested in, and I'm a little on the fence. And this first one is one of those. Bride is by Ali Hazelwood, and it says a dangerous alliance between a vampire bride and an alpha werewolf becomes a love deep enough to sink your teeth into in this new paranormal romance. And if you don't know, if that name sounds familiar, Ali Hazelwood is the author of The Love Hypothesis, as well as some other romance books. So this is her introduction to fantasy. I'm curious how that's going to go. I'm curious how she's going to utilize vampire and werewolf tropes, but I don't know that I'm going to rush out to get it. I kind of want to see what other people say, maybe. I don't know. There's a part of me that's also, I am kind of just curious how that's going to go. But anyway, the 6th is the projected release date for that one. Moving on to The Trials of Empire. This is the 3rd book of a series, the first being The Justice of Kings. I read and quite liked The Justice of Kings when I picked it up. The 2nd book came out last year. I haven't yet had the chance to read it, but this 3rd one is going to be the next in this series. It is projected for the 8th, and I believe typically books come out on Tuesdays, so if there is an update and the release date changes, I will reflect that in the description bar, and that's where I'll put all of this information for you to reference back to. But the first one is an adult fantasy story that is exploring a woman who is basically shadowing a man who is judge, jury, executioner, and detective all in one. And there's a chance that maybe she'll embark on a journey to become something similar. Maybe she won't. It's told in a way where she is telling you of what happened. And so you know that she gets out of things, but you don't know the stakes are lifted because you don't know what happens to the other characters. And in a sense, even though she's the one telling the story, it feels like the person she's shadowing is more so the main character in a lot of ways. And it definitely had some interesting questions that it tackled as far as the concept of justice and morality. So I did really like that first one, but as I said, I've yet to read the 2nd. But the 3rd one does come out, or is projected at least to come out in the month of February. The 13th has so many books listed to be released. The first one I want to mention would be The Foxwife. This one is a blend of fantasy and, I believe, historical fiction, and it's one of those stories that might end up being shelved in fiction rather than fantasy, but I still wanted to mention it as it sounded something that I thought sounded really intriguing, and a lot of you might be interested as well. So it's historical fiction. It takes place in 1908. A young woman is found frozen in the snow. Her death is clouded by rumors of foxes involved, which are believed to lure people by transforming themselves into beautiful women and men. Bao, a detective with a reputation for sniffing out the truth, is hired to uncover the dead woman's identity. Since childhood, Bao has been intrigued by the fox gods, yet they've remained tantalizingly out of reach, until perhaps now. Meanwhile, a family that owns a famous Chinese medicine shop can cure ailments, but not the curse that afflicts them, that their eldest sons die before their 24th birthdays. There's a plane. I'm very sorry. It's really loud. Going on with the synopsis, though. Now the only grandson of the family is 23. When a mysterious woman enters their household, their luck seems to change. Or does it? Is their new servant a simple young woman from the north or a fox spirit bent on her own revenge? And then it says that it's a stunning novel about a winter full of mysterious deaths, a mother seeking revenge, and old folk tales that may very well be true. I think that sounds so good, so intriguing, so interesting, kind of eerie. I don't know. I was really excited when I saw that synopsis, and it doesn't seem like maybe a book that's going to be mentioned in as many fantasy circles, so I really wanted to emphasize that this one's projected to be released in February and get the news out there, because I think it sounds good, and fingers crossed that it is. After that, we have a historical fantasy by Catherine Arden called The Warm Hands of Ghosts. And the historical emphasis in the synopsis once again makes me wonder if this is going to be shelved as fantasy or if it's going to be in fiction. There's a stronger chance, I would think, of it being fantasy, given that Catherine Arden's already kind of established herself as a fantasy writer, but we'll see. The synopsis says, during the Great War, a combat nurse searches for her brother believed dead in the trenches despite eerie signs that suggest otherwise in this hauntingly beautiful historical novel with a speculative twist. So that's all I'm going to say about this one. This is a really long synopsis, and it's one of those synopses that I'm like, are you giving away like half the plot in that synopsis? So I don't want to read it, but that little snippet hopefully is enough to pique your interest. And if it does sound like something you want to learn more about, I'll have links to all of these in the description so you can check out a little bit more about it. But if you're a fan of Catherine Arden in general, this is probably something that you're excited about. And if that name sounds familiar and you're like, what did she write? It's The Bear and the Nightingale, that author. From there, we have What Feasts at Night. This is by T. Kingfisher, and this is kind of, it goes alongside What Moves the Dead, which was a gothic horror. It says, retired soldier Alex Easton returns in a horrifying new adventure. After their terrifying ordeal at the Usher Manor, Alex Easton feels as if they just survived another war. All they crave is rest, routine, and sunshine, but instead, as a favor to Angus and Miss Potter, they find themselves heading to their family hunting lodge deep in the cold, damp forests of their home country. In theory, one can find relaxation in even the coldest and dampest of autumns, but when Easton arrives, they find the caretaker dead, the lodge in disarray, and the grounds troubled by a strange, uncanny silence. The villagers whisper that a breath-stealing monster from folklore has taken up residence in Easton's home. Easton knows better than to put too much stock in local superstitions, but they can tell that something is not quite right in their home or in their dreams. So that one sounds appropriately creepy, as I would expect for a companion to What Moves the Dead. Also, it's T. Kingfisher, and it's pretty much an auto interest, I should say, because maybe I'll check it out from the library, but at the very least I'm always interested in whatever T. Kingfisher is doing. I didn't love What Moves the Dead as much as other T. Kingfisher works, but I still enjoyed it, and I'm definitely curious. This one sounds really good and really interesting and really out there. After that, we have Neferura, and this is an Egyptian-inspired story, which is really exciting. It says, it's the thrilling tale of the forgotten daughter of a legendary Egyptian pharaoh and the path she must take to escape her own dangerous fate. So I'm really excited just in hearing that it's Egyptian-inspired. I did a video about 2023 trends, which ones need to go, which ones need to stay. And one thing that got brought up is that a lot of us are a little over the Greek mythology retelling. And I think by extension, you could maybe add in Norse. Not that we think it should be gone entirely, but I think for a lot of us, we just want more than just those. So the fact that we're actually getting something that's Egyptian inspired is really exciting. It says at the end that she must decide where her loyalties lie and how much she's willing to sacrifice to protect the people she loves before everything crumbles at the hands of a tyrant. So I think that sounds like it has the potential to be really exciting. After that, we have An Education in Malice. This is by the same author who wrote A Dowry of Blood. A Dowry of Blood was definitely an experience, and it resonated with a lot of people who have experienced abusive relationships. With how it was written, the style was very fitting to the headspace that one can be in when they find themselves in those circumstances, but it did create for a very kind of niche reading experience, and I'm very interested to see what else this author does. An Education in Malice says it's sumptuous and addictive, and that it's a dark academia tale of blood, secrets, and insatiable hunger. So that alone is all I need to hear. Similar to what I was saying about one of the books earlier, I hesitate to say too much about the plot of this one, as I feel like with some of those darker, eerie, academic stories, that sometimes it's the experience of reading them and going in without a whole lot of knowledge that really enhances everything. But when you get too many details, it sort of takes away. Maybe you don't feel that way, but I kind of feel that way about some of these. So I don't want to say too much else. But it does says, tangled in a sinister game of politics, bloodthirsty professors, and dark magic. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds interesting. I'm very picky about dark academia, though, so I don't know. But we'll see. Getting to one that is much more fantasy feeling, we have A Flame in the North. An elemental witch and her shield maiden journey into a world of ancient myth and unexpected destiny in this sweeping Norse-inspired epic fantasy. The Black Land is spent myth. Centuries have passed since the great enemy was slain, yet old fears linger, and on the longest night of the year, every village still lights a ritual fire to banish the dark. That is Slaveg's duty. Favored by the gods with powerful magic, Saul calls forth Flame to keep her home safe. But when her brother accidentally kills a northern lord's son, she is sent away as part hostage, part guest, which is called a weregild, for a year and a day. The further north Soul travels, the clearer it becomes. The Black Land is no myth. The forests teem with foul beasts. Her travel companions are not what they seem, and their plans for her and her magic are shrouded in secrecy. With only her loyal shield maid and her own wits to rely upon, Soul must master power beyond her imagination to wrest control of her fate. For the Black Land's army stirs, ready to cover the world in darkness, unless Soul can find the courage to stop it. They thought the old ways were dead, but now the enemy awakens. So I actually kind of think that the synopsis sounds a little generic, but I'm not going to rule it out, because sometimes a basic synopsis can lead to a fantastic story. It's just all about how it's written and how it's done. So we'll see. After that, we have Sunbringer. This is the sequel to God Killer. It's projected to be released on the 15th, so once again, not a Tuesday. You all know I loved God Killer, so I cannot wait for Sunbringer. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited for this. I might even reread God Killer leading up to Sunbringer, but the first book, the quickest way I can describe it is, what if the Witcher series was much more focused on Geralt and Ciri? And that's all I'm going to say. It's fantastic, explosive, great lore. It's just great. I love it. I can't wait for Sunbringer. Now going to the 20th, we have a Tempest of Tea. And this is one that I believe was originally supposed to come out quite a while ago and got pushed back. It says it's the first book in a hotly anticipated new fantasy duology about an orphan girl and her crew who get tangled in a heist with vampires, perfect for fans of Lee Bardugo's Six of Crows. On the streets of White Roaring, Arthi Casimir is a criminal mastermind and collector of secrets. Her prestigious tea room transforms into an illegal bloodhouse by dark, catering to the vampires feared by society. But when her establishment is threatened, Arthi is forced to strike an unlikely deal with an alluring adversary to save it, and she can't do the job alone. Calling upon a band of misfits, Arthi formulates a plan to infiltrate the dark and glittering vampire society known as the Aetherium. But not every member of her crew is on her side, and as the truth behind the heists unfold, Arthi finds herself in the midst of a conspiracy that will threaten the world as she knows it. And then it says it's dark, action-packed, and swoon-worthy. So I've said for a while now, I feel like vampires are making a comeback, and this is the second one at least, right? In the books listed today that have vampires in them. This sounds so good, though. I mean, imagining like Six of Crows, but with vampires, I'm all in. I think that sounds really cool. We also have on the 27th, we have two more. We have Fathomfolk and A Fate Inked in Blood. Fathomfolk has a very long synopsis. It says in one of the comp titles, it mentions the Bone Shard daughter, which I'm all about. And man, it's just such a really long synopsis, but it says, welcome to Tiankawi, shining pearl of human civilization and a safe haven for those fleeing civil unrest, or at least that's how it first appears. But in the semi-flooded city, humans are quite literally on peering down from skyscrapers and aerial walkways on the Fathomfolks, sirens, sea witches, kelpies, and kappas who live in the polluted waters below. And then our main character, it would seem, is somebody who is half siren. So that sounds really cool. I've seen some early reviews say that it's kind of like fantasy mixed with a feeling of New York City, where the city is really intense, except for mixed with all these fantasy beings. So it seems like it has the potential to be something really cool and really different, but we obviously will have to wait till the 27th to find that out. And then last, a fate inked in blood. I'm never going to be able to say that clearly. This is by Danielle Jensen, who wrote the Bridge Kingdom series. It says a shield maiden, another shield maiden, blessed by the gods, battles to unite a nation under a power-hungry king while also fighting her own growing desire for his fiery son in this Norse-inspired fantasy romance from the best-selling author of The Bridge Kingdom. So I am excited for this one as far as fantasy romance goes. I do like how this author writes it, so I will probably be checking this one out, as well as quite a few of these. Sunbringer, though, I think is my most anticipated. But let me know, of this list, what is your most anticipated? Was there anything that you hadn't heard about yet that now that you've heard about it, you're really interested in it? And are there some that you're just going to kind of keep your eye on, you're not really sure? And if there's any I didn't mention, feel free to mention them in the comments down below. But thanks so much for watching. If you need references to any of these, I'll have them in the description bar. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.